Hey there, and welcome to the latest episode of the Mind Body Health Podcast with myself, Dave Sheahan, high performance consultant and dedicated now for over 25 years to educating, motivating, and I really hope inspiring you to be your best self and to achieve the best life that you can have. Because remember, you live once and this is your opportunity to live your best life, but it takes action. And that's what this podcast is all about educating you on the whole area of mind, body, and health and other areas, hopefully motivating you, and as I said, hopefully inspiring you through podcasts that I give you information myself, other ones where I have guests on, sharing their stories, sharing their inspiration, and sharing their knowledge with you. And in this particular podcast, I'm delighted to have live from Surrey, UK, Annie Connolly, former Great Britain athlete, very passionate vegan activist, does amazing work all the time in helping to inspire people to, again, lead their best lives, make better decisions, and as I said, very passionate about animals and helping that whole side of injustice in the world. And very inspiring in the way she lives her life. But like anyone I ever have on here has had a roller coaster of a life, ups, downs, all kinds of all over the place. Again, that's how it tends to be when you kind of always aim to live your best life. She's going to share some great information with us and share her story. And Annie, welcome to the Mind Body Health Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. And I've been looking forward to having you on for a long time. You're a very, very busy lady. And you're doing a lot of great stuff out there, and look forward to getting you to share your journey with our audience and sharing some great tips, I'm sure.
Thank you. Well, hopefully, I hope it transpires that way anyway.
I'm sure it will. Again, like, look, you share a lot of your own journey every day, again, on social media. You're showing, again, when you're going through your own challenges, which I love, because authenticity is something that's massive and it's sadly missing in a huge part in the world, especially on social media, where people typically are putting up more only the good stuff, or even most of it is even fake stuff. It's not even the reality. So when I see people being authentic, I love it, because again, that's the way I tend to try to live, or attempt to live anyway, because it has a far bigger chance of having a bigger positive impact on people. So it's great to see you again being authentic. When you're having a shitty day, you show it. When you're having a good day, you show it. And that's the right way to do it, you know?
It's something, I think that I'm really glad you've noticed that, and that's really obvious, because that, for me, other than the animals and, striving to make the world a better place for the animals, I have to say that, being authentic and showing the realities of life in a very, very superficial, fake world that we've kind of managed somehow has been created, I feel it's more important than ever to actually show the real side of it. And I think that kind of stemmed back to when I was an athlete at quite a young age, and sort of I think I first represented Great Britain when I was 18. And I was running internationally from sort of around 18 to 22, and then you're very impressionable at that age, and during my running career and subsequently after that ended, I developed an awful lot of issues and problems which have affected my whole life. And I can attribute that to a couple of magazine articles that I read. And now I can look back, and with all the experience that I've learned I know that what was said in those articles, I know it wasn't real, it wasn't true. Yeah. But as an impressionable young person, I believed what I read, and it had the most profound effect on my life and actually my running career as well. So understanding and learning that, knowing that, and knowing how it affected me, I've always had this really staunch belief in you have to be authentic in every single situation you're in, every scenario. Don't make out, and I know not everybody wants to do this, and I know some people find it really difficult, but just even if I don't know, it's like I've started doing, as we've just talked about before, I've started doing a little bit of presenting on a beauty channel where I will only advocate cruelty-free and vegan products, which I feel really, really lucky I'm able to do that.
What's the name of that one, Annie? Just throw it in there.
It's called Agora. So it's called Agora, and it's called Agora Gets Real. And the reason why I am really behind this company is because its ethos is get real. So it's real beauty. And I am sick to death of being a woman who his sold rhetoric and his sold things from people that, you know, oh, if you buy this for £90, you're going to have hair looking like this. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you've got hair extensions in. If I go and spend £200-300 and my hair doesn't get hair extensions, I too will have hair like that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Not if I buy your product that you're trying to sell, you know. And so it's just a platform I can go on and show products that I think work, and I can say, do you know what, I have had hair extensions in when I go through phases where I lose my hair, but this is real. It's not hair extensions. I'm going to tell you how it's actually going to work, or if it will work, because it worked for me, but it's just very real. And I think I have an issue with people with things just not being quite as they are perceived, and then that has such a huge effect on people's mental health. You know, well, because comparison, whether we realize it or not, unfortunately, you know, we do live now where we do compare where we are in life. How good is our career compared to somebody else? You know, oh, you know, I'm the same age as her, but I don't have, you know, I've got wrinkles, blah blah blah, or whatever it might be.
What's wrong with me?
And that's exactly it. You know, I don't have that, or we compare ourselves, and sometimes I don't think we're comparing. I mean, we shouldn't compare, but we naturally do. But sometimes
we're conditioned to at this stage too by marketing.
Absolutely. And I think there is a shift in that. I think people are now beginning to get sick and tired of this fake world, you know. And it is becoming a little bit more real. And I love this shift, because I think comparing yourself to somebody else's fake, false reality that actually isn't their reality does have such a huge, profound effect on us, our mental health, and therefore our motivations to do something. So for me, it's just as important. You know, I'll happily, you know, video myself looking horrendous on the bike, dripping with sweat, literally there's a pool on the floor, because I don't want, you know, if somebody says to me, oh, but you're so slim or whatever, it's like, Jesus, so would you be if you did this? Do you want to do this? If
you work consistently,
you will.
But it's like that, like that's where, as you said, the shift is definitely happening. There's definitely more authenticity. Like, it's not that long ago where if you were creating any videos online or doing lives, you would always have like green screens, there'd be makeup, you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, photoshopping and fixing things after in an editing. Whereas now literally it's a case of more and more, thankfully, more and more people too are doing it. Grab your phone, turn on live, you could be in bed looking horrendous and people love it. And that's good. Like, it definitely, that shift is happening and hopefully continues, because that kind of fake influencer type of thing is definitely starting to decrease, I see as well. And hopefully it continues, you know. And like, as we spoke about before we went on recording, you know, it has never been a more important time to give hope to people and to work on mental health, because mental health has been absolutely annihilated for a number of years now. Always has been to some degree, but especially these last couple of years. And people are suffering that way, and they need hope. And this is where they need, you know, people like yourself being authentic, showing it real, showing when you're having bad days, showing when you're having good days, like I do, like other people do, because that is how you will have a positive impact. Like, I'm sure you get plenty of messages of people thanking you for, whether it be something you shared, or like that, just showing yourself half dead after the bike, or like that when you're doing your presentation with Agora, and just thanking you for, again, having a positive impact, that, oh, I can see myself in you, or, you know, they can relate, because when they can relate, then that makes a huge difference. So like, that authenticity is crucial right now. And again, never more important than right now.
If you are relatable, I think that's the key. Because if you, whatever change it is you're wanting to make, or whatever message it is you're wanting to pass on, that person has to, whoever is listening to you, has to be able to relate to you, so that they know that that message is applicable to them. If there is that divide there, it almost goes over their head. It's like that if you are unrelatable, then that message is not for you. And essentially, my whole message is about we are the change. We can make change, and we have to be as authentic to ourselves as possible. And, you know, and for me, my motivation is getting the message across for, you know, for animals. I am vegan, and, you know, I do want to stop, well, not, I can't personally stop, but I'd like to be part of a movement that helps people to see that small changes that they make can have a profound effect on the animals and what they do, and that they are important, and it's to empower people to realize how important they are, and that when we are talking about changing welfare for animals, when we're talking about climate change, that they're not void from this. It's not them that you know, when that we're it's not them that we're talking to. I want people to realize it is exactly them that we're talking to. You are super powerful. You can have a direct effect on animal welfare. You can have a direct effect on the planet. And I think if people start to realize their own self-importance and how important they are to everything, that can be good or bad, then I think then that's when they start to feel empowered. And not only does that then influence the choices and decisions that they make for external factors, but then that will also empower changes that they make for themselves.
Yeah, like every single person has a possibility of making an impact on even just one other person in a day. That's minute. They could have impact on hundreds indirectly, because there's a domino effect too. You know, it's like if it's something like, I always say this to people, or my son used to always wonder why I did this, but for many years now, every single person I pass, I'll acknowledge them, whether it be to smile at them, say a hi, wave, nod, whatever. And, you know, I said, what the hell are you doing that for? You know, like most of them don't even acknowledge you back or anything. I said, well, look, I'm doing my part. There's a potential knock-on effect. They could be having the shittiest day of all times. They could have come from bad meetings, bad phone calls. Who knows what the reason is? You just give them that tiny smile or nod or acknowledgement that they actually exist, can actually give them a spark that will actually let them go on to have a better day. How many people can they then impact, and so on? Same as like someone making better choices for the animals, or better choices in their own life, starting to exercise, eat a bit healthier, drink a bit more water, take that little step, not feeling the fear, just go on and do it for their professional life or whatever area. If you do something like that, then you're going to have a positive impact on other people. And every single person can have such a huge impact on so many other people, even if you don't realize it. Sharing a post, like a motivational quote, and if you share it, how many of your friends or followers, whatever they might be on the platform, may see it? How many of them may just, again, be that spark for them that day? Then how many people could they then go on and impact, whether they realize it or not? So, like, we all have a possibility of making a very positive change in the world, because collectively, if there's good positive energy, people act out of love and the right intention, the change can be remarkable and really, really fast. And people need to realize that every single one of us has potential. There's no pedestals here. It's like say speaking events. There's all the audience, and there's usually speakers up on this big stage, and people see them on that stage. And even though what they might be saying or promoting sounds amazing, people down below sitting in the seats, for 99% of them, will never do anything with it, because they'd see themselves as not that person on the stage. Whereas like that, when you're being authentic, showing the good and the bad, people can actually relate to it and go, here, I'm the same as Annie, so I can do that too. And then they go and do it. That's why authenticity has to keep increasing and needs to win. And I believe 100% will. It's like it's got momentum now, and the fake influencer, all that kind of side, is definitely dying.
Yeah. I agree, and I think if you look at your own behaviours, so I always kind of look at, you know, at how I behave towards certain things. I know for me, you know, who has positive and negative effects on me, on my mindset, on my thoughts, or whatever it might be, or my actions. And so therefore I implement that to myself as well. You know, I kind of think that, you know, somebody who makes out, you know, who you can just tell is not being particularly genuine, you know, immediately you're kind of turned off by that message, no matter how good that message may be. Or if you feel that they're doing it simply because they're being paid to do it, again, it kind of seems to dilute the, you know, the importance of that message. And so, yeah, for me, I just think absolutely being authentic and being true to you in your values, and applying that to everything you do in everyday life is the key to success, really, and happiness. Because I think, you know, those people that may have particular views and thoughts, you know, at home, but then they maybe go and do a job that is completely and utterly, you know, how many times do you hear people say, well, if I had my time again, I wouldn't do this. You know, it's kind of like, that's just the road to, you know, almost like self-destruction, you know. And it's okay to make change. And there's this other thing as well in life, that, you know, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. If you've made your options, you made your choices, live by it. Whereas actually, I live completely opposite to that. And I can get a bit of stick for that, because sometimes some people can sort of say, we don't see things through, or, you flit around from here to here. Yeah, actually, I do, because I'm prepared to give something a go. But if it's not for me, I'm not afraid to stop.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid at the age of, 40 something to go on and start, a law degree, or I'm not afraid to stop something that isn't true for me at that particular moment in time and go and seek something else. Because we are ever evolving, and that's okay. We're allowed to evolve. We're taking in new bits of information every minute of every day. And if that doesn't penetrate, if that doesn't then affect or potentially change your thought process, then there's something not quite right there. I sort of liken myself to a sponge. I'm learning new things all of the time, but then I will also adapt my behaviours to that. And I think that's okay. And I think that is the key to living truly and authentically to yourself, is making sure that every area of your life, whether that's work, home, play, whatever it is, aligns with where you are at that moment in time, and aligns with your true core beliefs. And I do think if you start to sway away from that, that's when mental health issues really do generally tend to manifest.
Yeah, no, that's a hugely important point you're making. And it's like the thing of being able to look yourself in the mirror honestly, eyeball to eyeball, and know you're doing the right things for you, or being honest with yourself when you're not doing the right things, or like that when, as you said, something's not right for you, so you make the change. And that's again why I've been so passionate for so long about stressing to people about mind, body, and health, because the only people who can live lives like that are people who are secure in themselves, who do have self-love. We all have times we don't love ourselves, but in general that you love yourself and that you have control of the mind, body, and health area of your life. So this is why it's so important for people to take responsibility for that area, like all areas of life, but especially that one, and feel the impact of it on everything else. Because again, when you do love yourself and you have some self-confidence, you can be very honest with yourself, and you can live authentically, and you will do things to serve yourself best. And more, what's nearly like a superpower is to genuinely get to a point where you don't give a shit about what anyone thinks about you, your behaviors, your actions, nothing. But if you're living true to you, that's all that matters. And the goal is to become nearly impenetrable, where you don't care what other people think, because you shouldn't care what other people think, because they have no idea what's going on in your head, why you're doing certain things, why you've got certain goals, why you're leading certain paths, why you're not doing certain things. You're doing you, and that's all that matters. But you have to be secure in yourself to do that.
I think that's actually a little bit of a pure definition almost of liberation. I honestly do feel that the minute you understand your core beliefs, your core values, and regardless to anybody around you, regardless to where, what other people, around you think, if you don't care to a point where it's not going to change your actions, it may affect you a little bit or upset you a little bit.
Yeah, mostly because you're human.
But essentially carrying on regardless. That is liberation. That's totally. Because we're so constrained by what we should do or what we're expected to do, and that's where the external pressures come from, is what society expects. And, and if we don't fit into that mold, then it's, then we live disingenuously to who we are. And then the mental health implications of that are so extensive. And I think, I care about people around me. I care about those people that are, influential in my life. And I do care, if they really, if what I do, they don't necessarily approve of. But that's because I'll respect them, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah, that's the key thing. You respect them, but you do it anyway. That's a key line, really. No, it's good. So it's like that authenticity side, self-care, self-love, being honest with yourself, so important. So I want to do now, Annie, is go right back to again as a kid and just taking us up through your journey. And, especially again, like where the whole kind of area of mindset and exercise, sleep, health, all the different areas that go into mind, body, and health, where you became more conscious of how important they were, where maybe you hadn't, again, an awareness or stress on how important they were, where again, you may have gone through difficult times that could have helped you. Also, like even in recent times, where having that element of control and exercise and so on has helped you through so many things. Because again, like people who put themselves out there, who, you know, put their neck in the line, who really go for goals and don't live your typical conventional safe life. You know, you've had the ups and the downs. It's been a roller coaster. You know, that's just how it goes for people who do live unconventional lives. But if you go right back in like a kid, you know, what kind of way were you living as a kid? You know, where did mindset come in? Was it important? Exercise? How did you even get into the athletics and then become a Great Britain athlete?
I think naturally I've always been a super active person physically. So I've got a very active mind and therefore very active body. So, you know, my parents kind of described me as I never stopped, ever. And that's sort of what when I look back to my childhood, you know, we never sat watching television, always physically active, doing something. I think naturally I was a natural athlete. So I think I was, you know, sort of born with a talent, but then and that was sort of recognized fairly early on. And even though I was quite talented, I was quite rubbish up until I became about sort of, I don't know, 16 probably.
What age did you get into doing athletics? Like, were you very young?
Yeah, I used to go to an athletic club sort of from the age of, I actually remember my dad taking me up to the local recreation centre and running around the field when I was probably about 10.
Yeah.
I remember doing that. And then I remember, I always used to, it was only done very sort of low key. Then I just went to a local athletic club every Thursday night, and then they would obviously then, you know, sort of enter you in races, and I would just enter locally. And then sort of at your athletic club, all the races will be sort of county, eventually you get up to county level. And I was always really not very good. There was something, I would always be picked out, if you like, because naturally I could run. So I think I naturally had quite a good...
you look like a good technique and talent.
Yeah, I had something. But my results didn't reflect that, which actually was a blessing, because obviously sometimes if you develop that a little bit too much too young, you know. Yeah. But
how was your confidence, self-esteem and all that as a kid? Just to go back in as a kid. You know, what were you confident, not confident, or what were you?
Yeah. Always supremely confident.
Great.
Always. I've always had this belief you can do anything.
So you never lost that childlike mentality?
No.
Because that's the thing, like when every single child thinks they can be Superman, an astronaut, a footballer, an athlete, they don't care. There's no boundaries. Adults make the boundaries. You never lost that, so.
No, I think what helped that actually was one of the best races I ever ran. I was over in Luxembourg, and I was running for England, and unexpectedly I won. And I won the under-23 race, and Paula Radcliffe, she came second in the senior race, and the Romanian athlete Gabriela Szabo, who went on to win the Olympics the year after, she won. So the deal, not the deal, but what used to happen at events like this was if you won, or if it came first or second, the local mayor you'd go for dinner that evening with the local mayor.
Yeah.
And I was sat next to Paula Radcliffe, and
cool.
Yeah, and you know, I just had to pretend that was normal and that, you know, that was okay. But she made me realise, because I'd finished my race, I'd won, and then her coach, the amazing Alex Stanton, came up to me just before the race, and there was a really tricky technical part of this course, and where we had to run up some steps, and he said to me, he said, how did you cope with the steps? How did you, we're undecided, should she do it in one stride, or should she do a step between the sides? And I was like thinking, right, Alex Stanton is here. He called me the Yorkshire Terrier as well. So I was like, how does he even know who I am? He said to me, he said, well, Race, he said, you're such a Yorkshire Terrier. He said, you just wouldn't give up. And I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And I was sort of sat there thinking to myself, he's asking me to tell Paula Radcliffe, who a couple of years earlier had won the World Championships, is asking me, how did I run up these stairs? But I had to be normal and had to just, you know, this is not a big deal. This is just absolutely normal.
But one thing on that, though, while you continue, doesn't it just show again, as I said, everyone has something they can contribute. Doesn't matter who the hell you are, what level you're at, everyone can contribute. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. But this leads on to your original question of, so I did this, and anyway, what was really awful with this race is she didn't realise at the time, but she actually fell. She didn't do what I said. I said, you've got to go up. You've got to put a little step in between. She didn't. She did it in one stride. She put her spikes on one of the wood ledges, and she fell. And she actually was out for months because she got stress fractured a leg. Anyway, what happened that night was we sat around dinner, and obviously, you know, I just had to pretend this is normal. I've won the race. It's Gabriella Zarbo here. Paula Radcliffe is sat next to me. This is just bizarre.
Like a dream.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, and I'm here. But it was such an amazing lesson, because what that made me realise is, here is this woman who I absolutely idolise, but she is so normal. She is she is no different to me. Her insecurities, her concerns, her worries, who she is, the way she eats, everything. She is just like me. And I think, you know, I was lucky in a young age to meet some in my world who I thought were unbelievably amazing people. And so I had that connection with people who I'd always put on a pedestal. So I was lucky to meet these people that I revered.
Yeah.
But what was the best lesson is, they are so normal.
Yeah.
They are just like, and I've had that my whole entire life. I can look at somebody who I idolize, for example, Dr. Jane Goodall, and think, you know, wow, you know, she is somebody that we should all, you know, she's absolutely amazing, blah, blah, blah. But I don't segregate myself from somebody like that.
Yeah. You're inspired by them more than anything. You're not like a deer in headlights type thing.
Yeah, but I know we all, if we apply ourselves, okay, with athletics, you've got a little bit of natural talent, but essentially, if we have, you know, that mechanism around us, if we have the right support, if we have that belief, you know, we can do it, and there is nothing that we can't do. And I think that's something I've always had my whole entire life. There is nothing I can't. The only person that will stop me from getting anything is myself. Yeah. So like I've started doing a law degree. I'm not academic. I'm fairly bright, but I'm not academic at all. But I've taken on a law degree because lawyers, all of these other people who are doing law degrees, people who are practicing law, they are no different to me. Yeah. They've just applied themselves. They've just put, you know, and so that's kind of definitely the way that there isn't anything I can't do. And if I haven't done something, I've taken accountability. It's because of me. My running career ended because of choices I made, or I couldn't control my own mind. It was my, you know, it's essentially down to it's taking accountability. So if I do achieve something, then it's because I've worked hard for it. Yeah,
that's where I'm always stressing the mind's the control tower, because it literally is. Like, we have no limits, as you said, in sport, and, you know, I suppose you'd have like in artists in terms of musical or creative, you know, there is talent, of course, but if you don't match with the hard work, it ain't going anywhere, or it'll never reach full potential. It's like there's people who've minimal talent, but they will rather die than not succeed, and they succeed. You see that again across all sports, you know, but the mind's control tower is what people have to really realize. That's why work on your mind is so important. And faith, and it's way more important even than on the body, no matter what your physical goals may be. And to take a personal responsibility for every aspect of your life is hugely important then as well.
I learned that actually in a really interesting, the power of the mind. I remember we used to have to be tested quite regularly because they would tell me how fit I was. So it wouldn't be a case of, you know, yeah, my times are showing this, I'm quite fit. They would test me to say, no, you're not particularly on form at the moment, or, yeah, you're running all right. And I remember one Monday night I was in the labs till quite late actually, and they were doing lactate testing. So I was hooked up on the treadmills onto these, and you had to run to exhaustion. So you had these things that would either lift you off, or back in those days, I had a crash mat at the back of the treadmill in case I fell off. But what they would do is they would take blood from my finger, and they would measure my lactate levels in my blood at various points and at various speeds that I was running at. And I remember there was one time I was running, and I was actually literally at this point where I said to there was my coach on one side, and then I don't know what they are. They're like scientists, sports scientists, I guess.
Yeah.
And there was one by the computer and one sort of taking your blood and stuff. And I remember turning around to him going, I'm going to fall off. I'm going to fall off. I'm done. And the guy by the computer just turned around and he went, you're nowhere near. And I said, what? I was just, and he said, I can't remember what my lactate levels were. And he said, your heart rate is this, your VO2 is this, your lactate levels are this. You're nowhere near your maximum.
Yeah. When we think we're at our max, we're not even close. It's like, I don't know if you follow David Goggins. I love David Goggins. He's a lunatic. He's former Marine and SEAL and all this, but he's massive on the mind. You should check him out. But he says, like, when you're hitting that wall, when you're hitting that point where you think you are done, you're at about 40% of done.
Yeah.
So keep going.
That's exactly what that night proved to me. And that's also what made me realize, oh my God, if I am going to make it, I'm going to have to toughen up, because the amount of pain that your body can take is unbelievable. I mean, at that point, I honestly felt like I physically could do no more, but I could. I absolutely could. My body wasn't that stressed. What was stressed? My head.
Yeah.
My head was stressed. It was painful. It was uncomfortable. I was out of my comfort zone. My body could way deal with it. My body coped with it perfectly fine, but it was my head. And that was a really interesting lesson for me. Again, because psychologically, I've always been quite weak. That's always been my weak area. Physically, I know how capable I am, but my mind has always been the thing that I've had to work on. And I always go back to that as like a point where if I'm uncomfortable, if I don't feel I can do something, I always remember that actually you can. Your mind is telling you that you can't. And there's also a thing there as well, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So it's that when you're on a treadmill, whatever exercise you're doing, if you're in immense pain, do you actually want to carry on going through with that level of discomfort?
Yeah.
There's that side of it as well. If you really, really, really want it, you will push through because you can, because your body's okay. But it's your head and the psychological side of exercise, training, achievement, anything at all, it really is way and above the physical.
Yeah, completely. And it's like, developing calluses on the mind, basically. Like, you have to keep hammering it and getting over it and keep going, because we truly have unlimited potential, like unlimited. So Annie, what I want to do now is, like, if you take us even some of dark times in your life, whether it be to do with, again, athletics, physical, or life in general, that you're happy to share, and dark times, a little bit about them, and most importantly, how, again, the whole mindset, exercise, health, all that side of things then were a real big reason why you got out of it. Because I think this is the thing for people, like, when people get into dark places, they don't even know how to get out of it. They don't take ownership. They don't take personal responsibility. They don't have the mindset for it. And it's just, people need, again, to see that they can do it. Like, they have to, again, take responsibility, take the right actions, and you can get out of any hole, no matter what it is.
That's right. I've had a couple of really, really, really prominent events in my life, I think, where I've been tested very much psychologically, and that I've had to really adapt to those situations to get out of it. I think the very first one was when my career was about beginning to end. So I was getting conflicting bits of advice. I was so supposedly underweight that I had issues with my development. So even at the age of 22, I hadn't gone through puberty. and I had bone density scans, and they were my bones were the equivalent of a woman who'd, I think they said 60-year-old woman who'd gone through the menopause. And they sort of painted a very dark picture, saying it's like a bank account, you need to put this in now, for later. This is not something that you can amend later on. So I was having like a lot of medical people suggesting that I stopped running. I stopped because my body needed, and I needed to go on hormone treatment to help me get better. And then I had the other side of that, where I knew that would have a massive detrimental effect on my career and where I wanted to go. And I was so focused on my career and what I wanted to do. Running was absolutely everything. It was my identity. It was who I was. It was all I'd ever seen. I was regimented to the point where, every minute of every day was running. But that was also the downfall as well, because I couldn't switch off. So but my understanding of my obsession, if you like, with it, I learned about that years after. But what happened during this time was I did go on hormone treatment. I did half do what the doctors wanted me to do, but then didn't as well. So there's lots of physical changes going on in my body, in a really, really important time in any athlete's career. And that's when you transition from, an incredibly successful junior / under 23 athlete to senior. And, you go from winning everything, representing your country, all the time, to, you might have a couple of years where you don't represent your country because, it's just that transition. But what was happening during that time as well was I was having all of this treatment and my body was changing. So I was probably putting on weight, and this was noticed. And this was quite freely commented on. And so because I wasn't in control of this, I was still training, sometimes twice a day. What I was eating was exactly the same. I knew that I could not afford to put the weight on that I was putting on. So I started making myself sick because I knew I still needed to eat. But this was so bizarre. I needed to eat to be able to train, but I didn't want to put weight on. So for me, I could never be anorexic because I needed the fuel, but I was bringing it back up. So I don't really understand my own mindset.
You had your own logic going on.
I had my own logic going on completely. But the thing was, running ended anyway. I ended up getting horrific injuries, which still affects me today. And I ended up being bulimic probably from the age of 19, 20, right the way through until I was probably about 36. And it never went. And it's because learned behaviours when you're a child and influences when you're younger, they do affect you really long term. And the other really dark time in my life was at the age of, I think it was probably 37. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. So I'd gone from being this, always had this self-belief on my ability physically. I'd always been, I think it was I can't remember what year it was now. So even though my running career had ended, I think I was probably about 34, 35. I ran an absolutely brilliant half marathon time. And I thought, right, I'm going to go for the Commonwealths, get my senior Great Britain vest. I'll do this. And my times in training were like unbelievable. And then suddenly I started to get really not well. I was losing my hair. My hair was all falling out. My skin was cracking and bleeding. I was having really weird up and down days. Like some days I couldn't even get out of bed. And then miraculously, weirdly, the following day I could do an absolute off the chart speed session. It was just this really weird thing. Anyway, I found out that, at the age of 37, I had an autoimmune condition. And that kind of ended my older attempt of coming back for a senior vest. But also that ended my bulimia, because I have a thyroid condition. Your thyroid is positioned here. And I turned around to my consultant and I said, It was the first time I've ever admitted to anybody I was doing this. And I said to him, have I done that? Have I done this to myself? And he said, how could you? It's important to me. How could you do this? And I said to him, I've been making myself sick since the age of probably 18, 19. I said, could I have damaged my thyroid, thinking that by putting my fingers down my throat, and he assured me absolutely not. And I know that I haven't, but again, it just in my mind, I just thought, the stresses that I put my body through, all of those things, is that my body's way of saying,
yeah,
you can't keep doing this.
That's the impact. It's like, again, the crying out element of your body that we spoke before. Yeah. That makes sense though. Yeah.
And so from that moment on, from the minute I had that consultation with the doctor, I've never done it since. You're still that old way. It's a control thing. It really is. And sometimes, depending on your mindset, we like to feel that we're in control. And I certainly do, and you do have those thoughts about, go, but I know I never ever will. So I think for me, being diagnosed with something like that, although it's not life-threatening, it hugely had a massive impact on my life. And I knew that it's chronic, so I'm going to have this condition I've got to manage for the rest of my life. And that changed everything for me, really. That made me realize that all we have is now. If I can get this, I can get anything at any point. So I just have to live, if something had have happened and I didn't survive, have I done what I wanted to do? And then I remember thinking to myself, okay, I have to stop this. One day I will. Because I used to say, my favorite phrase was, one day I'm going to get a horse. And after I'd been diagnosed with this, I thought, when is this day? Yeah. When is this day? And I went out and I rescued a racehorse that was completely inappropriate, and absolutely I should not have done it. I couldn't do it. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. But she ended up being the best thing I've ever done. But that's kind of where everything then changed. And that's where my mindset changed.
That was an important shift. Yeah.
A total shift. All we have is now. If not me, who? If not now, when? Yeah. And those are my mantras, and yes, I have bad days. Yes, I have days where I'm not randomly, because I just don't feel too well. But, it's just, I live by that. And that hugely changed everything in my life. And I also accepted as well, why I never made it as an athlete. I was too fragile psychologically. I couldn't cope with losing. I couldn't cope with negativity. I couldn't cope with, with the loss of control. When you're an athlete, you're not really, you kind of, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to be here, you have to be there. I kind of couldn't really cope with that. And it took all of that time, really, for me to come to terms with the fact I was never meant to be an athlete, but my athletic mental ability and my belief, I've got that for a reason, and I'm here for a reason. I've always felt that, that I'm here for a purpose, and I have this belief. And I always thought it was for running and it was for my athletic career. But then suddenly I realized, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's all part of your development of the journey. Yeah, your mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was to give me the belief that we're all the same. I was meant to meet these people. I was meant to, there's no segregation. I don't believe in any form of segregation. Yeah. I believe in a holacracy society. I believe we're all the same, no matter where you go. And that's why I'm a nightmare to employ, because I don't believe in that. Somebody may have a position above me, but they're not above me. They've got a job role to me.
Exactly. You're working as a team. That's the way it should be, no matter what position you're in the hierarchy. They're
potentially being paid more than me because they've got more responsibility, or the buck might stop with them.
Yeah.
But they have no, that they're not above me. And if anybody ever crosses that line, I simply won't accept it.
Yeah.
And that's where things can become a little bit tricky. So yeah. Oh, I'm gonna have to charge my battery. My battery's just come up saying it's.
Oh, is that what happened there? Yeah, just fire it in there.
It's all right. I've got one. So just keep talking to me, and I'll just go charge.
No, because like that's the thing. That's where you can see now, as you've spoken about your journey and where your mindset has developed over time. And again, the purpose is like with everything. Everything happens for a reason, and every part of your journey has happened for a reason to make you who you are today. And you're so passionate. You're so dedicated. You know, you're again like that calluses in the mind. You've lots of calluses in the mind now, and you continue to add more if you have to. So you know, it's like we come up to modern times now in the last few years, 5 to 10 years, and you know, can't speak to you without talk about veganism and animals and all you've done there, because you were so passionate about it. It's like with doing the law degree now to do what you can in that whole arena. So just talk us through leading up to that decision to become vegan. Like were you vegetarian a long time, or was it straight into vegan? And what made you go vegan? What were the benefits? And just speak a little bit about that side.
Yeah. So I've been vegetarian for a long time. I remember going vegetarian when I was doing my GCSEs, because I had to do an English assignment on did it on the RSPCA actually. So even at that age, you know, I kind of had this weird connection with animals, and obviously doing that assignment, doing my GCSEs, I learned quite a lot about, you know, the agricultural processes, etc., and realized that's not for me. So I became vegetarian. And I started eating meat again when I started running, because that was the done thing. And also I had, you know, your bloods are measured all the time. And I suppose back then there wasn't, you know, it was not
harder.
As advanced as we are now. Yeah,
completely.
And so I was low on B12. And so, you know, that was it. I remember my dad then, once I got my blood test results, you know, feeding me liver sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
My dad loves liver too. It's disgusting.
Oh God. I mean, I was quite happy as a meat eater. I mean, when I was racing, you know, steaks, whenever, I was a proper meat eater.
Yeah.
But then as soon as running ended, I went vegetarian. Because essentially, obviously, I didn't believe in it at all.
Was it for the animals, or what was the reason? Or was it health?
100% for the animals.
Yeah,
100%.
so anytime you were vegetarian, it's for the animals. And then when you were eating meat, it was for performance, really. Because like you said, you were told that was how it was.
It was purely performance.
Yeah. It's like for me going vegan was because of performance. That was my mission. It wasn't even health. It was, I was noticing the difference in my triathlon trainers. Wow. So that was my initial motivation. Then it became more about health, and more about the animals, and then more about the planet. That was my kind of progress.
What's really interesting is I did a really lovely interview, I think it was about 18 months ago, do you remember the Olympic 400 meter runner, Jamie Bolsh?
Yeah.
So I did a lovely sort of interview chat with him, and we talked, because he's now vegan.
Yeah.
And he came out with he just randomly in the middle of the conversation, he said to me, he said, do you know what, Annie? He said, I often look, he said, I look at my medal, he said, I'm looking at it now, look at my medal cabinet and all my trophies, you know, Worlds, Olympics, everything he's got. He said, and I would like to know, if I'd gone vegan back then, how many more I would have.
Yeah.
And I said, really? And he said, he said, you know, he's knocking on the door of, I don't know, it's 48 maybe. He said, I'm lifting more weight now than I did when I was an Olympic athlete. He said, of course I'm not as quick. He said, of course I'm not, but I am just as fit.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to, I would love to know, you know, and love to be able to go back and be vegan when I was an athlete. And, you know, and it's only when you then look into it, you know, there are so many other, you know, athletes. Carl Lewis back in the day, he was vegan.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
it's amazing. That was so long ago.
Yeah. You know, I was so lazily told, oh yeah, you're low on B12, low on iron. There you go. You need to eat red meat.
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, look at the massive benefits of, you know, a vegan diet on inflammation. And what is inflammation leads to attributes to so many chronic, dreadful, you know, conditions within the body, and it reduces, you know, recovery. And for an athlete, it's all about recovery.
It's like injuries, sure. I can look back myself at all the various things I've done, and without doubt, all the injuries, any ailments like that would have been minimized at the very minimal if I had been vegan all the time. You know, so there's no doubt, because it's down again to acidity and alkalinity at the end of the day in your body.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I mean, a really good example this day and age, and very topical right now, is Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
You know, he's vegan. Now, he's not vegan for the animals. He's vegan purely for performance. Now, and for the vegan movement, I think somebody like that is so powerful because for some strange reason, when you talk about veganism, when you talk about animal rights, so many people are turned off by that. But if you talk about performance and wellness, then they will listen to that. Now, I don't understand that because everything I do is obviously for animal welfare.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, whether somebody's vegan or not, I don't care why you are.
Yeah, just that you are.
The same. Yeah. It means that, you know, essentially every single person being vegan prevents 200, it's around about 200 animals a year from being slaughtered.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge amount of animals, you know.
It's incredible.
And that's just the effect of animals, nothing else.
Yeah.
You know, not the environmental factors, etc. Just the animals itself. So, you know, I don't care why somebody's vegan. You know, if you are, then that's going to help the animals.
But people take notice of that, athletes or anyone famous, because that's just, again, the conditioned state of society. You know, that's what matters more than anything. And definitely, it's like selfish interest. If it makes me better, whether it be health or performance, whatever, people will go for that versus the animals. That's where it's like you have health or performance, animals, planet. It's usually one of those, and then it becomes all. Yeah. But if you look now across all types of sports, there's more and more athletes who are coming out saying that they're vegan, which is fantastic. And even in football, which has been so slow, when you think it's the biggest sport on the planet, even now in the English Premiership, there's players coming out saying they're vegan. The one that really busts the whole protein myth, especially, is like the NFL linebackers and stuff are about 20 stone, and more of them are coming out saying they're vegan in America. So the myths are being busted, and the key thing, and it's like when you go back to when your career and there wasn't as much information, there wasn't as much choice, there weren't as much alternatives. Yeah, you probably were deficient in things, and being veggie wasn't helping at that time, but it's only because you weren't able to fill in the right things, you didn't have the right knowledge. Whereas now, excuse. There's no excuse.
But that's also because, you know, when I can look back on it now, and I know exactly why. You know, I was an athlete, I was developing, well, my body was trying to develop. And, you know, but I wasn't independently able to look after my own diet. You know, I still lived at home with the rest of the family, you know, and therefore, you know, certain things weren't considered, you know, like they are now. You know, if somebody was to turn around to me, you know, but you're right, it's all about, we have so much knowledge now. I mean, look at breakfast cereals, for example. You know, plastered all over the front of them is always fortified with B vitamins, fortified with B12. Well, you know, everything's actually fortified with B12, the most important nutrient that we need, that everybody turns to, you know, with a you know, to a vegan. Oh, where do you get your B12 from? The same place you do. Yeah. Because everything is fortified with B12, because B12 is not found naturally in the most commonplace people think, i.e. beef. Yeah. It isn't. That cow's been fortified with B12. It's been injected, and that's how we get the B12 from meat. Yeah. We actually get it naturally, and as a nation and as a society, we are deficient of B12 because we've become organic. Super clean now. So, you know, our vegetables, you know, we get B12 naturally from the ground, in dirt, soil. That's where we naturally get B12 from. And so that's how the cows used to get it when they used to eat grass. Well, half of them don't go out anymore. Half of them eat grain. That's why they don't have B12.
Just like the stat I saw the other day, like, what is it? We feed 61 million animals, is it a day? I think it is. And we can't feed 5 billion, or billion it is actually, 61 billion, and we can't feed 5 billion humans. Which against, like, so the injustice side of it.
The grain that was used to feed the animals, if we use that to feed the world, would end world hunger.
That's what's insane.
It's astonishing as that. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, because we're trying to sustain, you know, okay, we've got a population now of knocking on the door of 8 billion people. Yeah. So we have this huge population that we're trying to feed. Added to that, if you include sea life, you're talking trillions. But you know, the absolute billions and billions and billions of life that we are keeping alive, you know, on this planet at any one time is utterly unsustainable. We don't have that enough land to create the brain to be able to feed that amount of life. So when you look at it like that and you think, okay, so what do we do? Well, if we don't have the cattle, we don't need to feed those billions and billions and billions, then, we can feed ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But why can't people? I don't understand.
It's illogical. Again, down to money and profit, unfortunately, which runs the world. Money makes the world go round, unfortunately. But we can only keep, again, trying to fight that through education, educating people on the realities of what go on, and then it's up to them to make informed decisions. And hopefully more and more will make the proper decisions. Just want to touch on what are kind of daily habits that you have that you would recommend to others incorporate into their lives, once you really feel serve you?
I feel really really strongly about people that put time every single day to one side for themselves. They tarnish it as being selfish. I absolutely need time on my own, with my own thoughts, just to process things, just to work things out without external influence, just to be on my own. I have to have time on my own with my own thoughts just to clear things up. But I absolutely have to train. I have to do some kind of exercise every day. Again, because that just relaxes my mind, gives me time to think whilst I'm doing something physical. But I know that I'm doing something for me and for myself and for my body. And I know that if I'm not fit and capable, I'm not going to be good for anything. I'm not going to be able to do anything. But my one thing that I would absolutely advocate for anybody is to make sure that you have at least an hour a day. And people are they'll say what they want to with this. I don't care. We have the time.
It's always the time.
You want to make it or not. Whether or not you have to get up a little bit earlier, you may have to sacrifice something else. Whatever it is, if you want it, you will find the time, and we do have the time. And you have to make a little bit of time for yourself. And whether that is just to sit there, it could be to exercise. It could be to sit there with a candle on journaling. It could be to sit there and to put a treatment on your hair, put something on your face, whatever it might be, something for you. And for you not to feel guilty and think that you are being selfish for giving yourself that time. If you don't look after yourself, give yourself a bit of a mental break, you're no good for anybody or to anybody. So
that's the irony.
In life will be effective.
But that's the irony, because people think they're being selfish when the thing is, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take the best care of others. That's the whole irony. It's like for a lot of mothers, they say, I can't take care of myself, can't eat right, can't exercise because of the kids and the husband and the house. And if you actually did take better care of yourself, you would be able to take better care of them. You'd be in better mood. You might be cranky sometimes, that type of thing. So we have to prioritize ourselves, and we are the most important person in our lives anyway, know. And just in the priority thing, it's like everyone's got 24 hours. No one's got more. No one's got less. That's what we have. Yeah. What fills it in terms of like a jigsaw is what we're prioritizing. When someone says, I don't have time for that. Well, you have time for something else that shouldn't be there, and this should be in instead. So you're just prioritizing something else, which actually shouldn't be as important. That's basically what it is.
Totally.
No,
and I think sitting there and working out and I think January is, I'm kind of not necessarily somebody for sort of, New Year's resolutions, because I kind of think if you really want it, you'll do it any time. There's no time like now. But I understand that a lot of people do quite like that fresh start, that clean slate. So now is a really good time to kind of, if you are struggling to prioritize, what I would say to you, whatever you do prioritize, you will do. So sometimes you just need to clear that up in your own head. So this is a really good time of year just to sit there, maybe with the diary, with the journal, whatever it might be, and write down, what do I really want? What do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? And how am I going to get that? And actually put that down, write that down, and make sure that you write down on there, okay, I'm going to do something every single day that's going to help me achieve that end goal. Even if it's, let's say somebody wants to get fit, all right, and they genuinely believe that they don't have time. Even if I do believe that little bit of something every day for that end goal, you will then achieve it. And even if it's 15 minutes where you just go for a walk, or you sit there with your exercise bands and do some resistance work with your exercise bands, even if it's just 15 minutes, do something every day that will help you attain what it is that you want to be. It just helps helps that whole shift in your mind, that you are in control, you can do this, it is up to you, it's not up to anybody else, you're taking ownership of this, and it just makes you feel a whole lot more empowered.
Yeah, totally. Again, it's taking personal responsibility and prioritizing yourself. And before we finish up, just to speak a little bit about some of the organizations and charities and animal welfare that you're very passionate with, so we can make sure that we can raise a bit of awareness with the audience of them.
Okay, so there's a couple that I work really closely with. So I set up an organisation called Cherry Horse Welfare International, and you can read a little bit about that on www.cherryhorsewelfareinternational.org. And that was an organisation I set up quite a few years ago when I lost one of my horses, and after I'd been out to a trip in Romania. So what the organisation was originally set up for was to work alongside the farming and the gypsy communities in Romania. We don't have authority or power to seize the horses. If they're surrendered, sometimes we can take them, but we have no legal authority to take any of the animals off of these neglected animals off of the farmers or the gypsies. But what we do is it's a community project where we go into the communities and work with these people, and we offer help and assistance to take care of their horses. We build relationships within the community. Now, really sadly, after COVID, that's just literally gone into decline. So there's no active projects at the moment, but that's essentially what Cherry Horse Welfare was, and that's what I started. But then that's also what made me start doing law. I started just over a year ago, as I realised that actually sometimes there are some animals that are in the most horrific situation, and they literally need to, and the only way that you can actually really help these animals is through law, and there's a better legal infrastructure for them and better legislation to protect the horses. So I've been focusing a little bit on that lately, and so unfortunately Cherry Horse Welfare is a little bit on the sideline, but I partnered with another charity called Save the Dogs and Other Animals, and that's again a charity in Romania, and they help rescue street dogs, and they are still doing some outreach work that Cherry Horse Welfare started with helping and rehoming horses that are so terribly neglected and abused. And then the other charity as well that I'm really close to, again, is another one in Romania, and that is the Dog Rose. And again, that's a community project. I raised a lot of money. I raised around almost £30,000 for spay and neuter unit. To go out again to local communities to spay and neuter the dogs, to try and keep the dog population down. So that's pet dogs as well as the street dogs. And I know a lot of people always ask why Romania, there's issues going on here in the UK too. I'm always involved with issues here going on. I was involved in one just before Christmas with a dog that was surrendered because they're 8 months old, and they decided to get a teeny tiny little 9-week old. So the 9-month-old was then surplus to requirements. So I do work on projects here in the UK, but I'm a massive believer in that we are all in this together. Just because we're divided by sea doesn't mean that it's not our problem. And unfortunately, the inherent cruelty issue that goes on over in Romania and the conditions in which the dogs live is so horrific that once you know and you've seen, you can't ignore. So if anybody is interested, I'm always posting. I work directly with the Dog Rose out in Romania, or I work with some street feeders as well. So people that actually go out and rescue the dogs off the street. And that's where I got my little Romanian rescue Toto from. And if anybody's interested or wants to be involved, whether it's on a horse project or with the dogs, if they contact me, either Annie Connolly on Facebook, or fill out an inquiry form on my website, on the Cherry Horse Welfare website, or find me on Instagram, Annie of Wonderland, and I can give you lots of links to help. And I think that's something as well, talking about mental health. So many people feel quite down about what goes on in the world, and sometimes that can end up being, you know, a spiral with our mental health. And I know that my mental health improved exponentially when I really got involved with charity. So if that's something that somebody thinks, you know, they want to make a difference but they don't feel that they can, they don't have money or whatever. I have absolutely no money. I just have an awful lot of, you know, sort of enthusiasm,
passion, determination.
Then I can honestly tell you that by getting involved in any way, there's always a way that you can help, and it makes you feel really empowered, and it makes you feel that you are giving something back to something that you do really believe in. So anybody's feeling down or whatever, drop me a message on any of those platforms, and I can give you really good sort of leads into how to best help. And you'll find that you, by creating a purpose like that as well, it just picks every other area of your life up.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we touched on a few times, you know, when you do something positive, it can only impact someone else positively, whoever or whatever that is, but also it impacts you positively as well. So it's a win-win situation. That's why, again, we have to create a world where we're acting truly, genuinely out of love and authenticity, because everyone wins then. So I'll include all the links in the show notes anyway, of all the links to charities and your links. So guys, just check out the links that'll be with this. So Annie, that's been absolutely epic and amazing. Great information. Your journey is incredible and inspiring. The work you do is inspiring. I love, as I said, your authenticity. That's why, again, I like you as a person. I like what you do, because authenticity is what needs to win. And that's what will have the biggest impact on this world at a time when it's needed most. So thanks so much for your time. I know you're very busy. So keep up the good work on the bike. Keep killing yourself and keep finishing in those pools of sweat.
I will do, don't you worry, that won't be stopping anytime soon. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Great having you on. So guys, that's it for another episode of the Mind Body Health Podcast. You know, please leave a rating review on Apple iTunes if that's where you watch it, or any of the other podcasting platforms, or leave comments on YouTube if you watch it there. And please share this out. These are the kind of messages that need to get out there, and now more than ever. People need hope, people need inspiration, people need that little spark, and a few minutes of this episode could be that spark that they need. I hope it's given you a bit of a spark today, some food for thought as well. So get out there, make things happen. You live once, remember, live fully, and live in desperate fear of regret.